Everyone laughed at the new waiter until he revealed in perfect Mandarin who he really was. Please don't forget to comment what you think. That night, in a luxury restaurant in Beijing, where only tycoons, celebrities, and heirs of great fortunes entered, a new waiter appeared. He was dressed impeccably, although his complexion set him apart from all the other employees. As soon as he entered the main hall, glances were exchanged with a hint of mockery, as if his mere presence was an insult to the status of the place. No one knew his name, but murmurs multiplied at every table as if he didn't deserve to be there. That a group of young millionaires, accustomed to no one setting limits for them, began to laugh openly upon seeing him serve the glasses. Seriously, they'll hire anyone now, one of them blurted out mockingly, causing their table to burst into laughter. The waiter, serene, continued working, but every gesture of theirs was laden with contempt. His accent, when pronouncing a few basic words in Mandarin, was enough for them to mock him even more loudly. It wasn't a mistake. It was an excuse to humiliate him in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the most influential woman in the group, dressed in a dazzling emerald green dress, watched him with an air of superiority. She couldn't stand the idea of someone different attending to her demands. With a cold smile, she ordered him to her table. "Bring me a glass of iced tea, but make sure you don't mess up, because we don't have patience for incompetents like you here," she said loudly for everyone to hear. The entire hall erupted in laughter, enjoying the public humiliation. He walked to the bar, calmly took the glass, and brought it to her table, leaning respectfully to place it. But at that moment, the woman stared at him, picked up the glass, and without hesitation, emptied it over his impeccable suit. The liquid ran down his face, his tie, and his black jacket, as laughter mixed with shouts of mockery. Nobody tried to stop her. Nobody defended him. Everyone seemed to be celebrating that cruel act, as if it were a show prepared for their entertainment. The waiter remained motionless with his eyes closed for an instant. The silence that seemed to be expected never came, because each laugh grew louder. "Look at you. Did you really think you fit in here?" she whispered, still holding the empty glass with a triumphant air. He took a deep breath, but didn't respond. His silence seemed to enrage them even more, as if they needed to hear pleas to feel they had absolute control. The pressure of that environment was suffocating. Even some clients who didn't share in the mockery remained silent for fear of being singled out. It was also a closed circle of power and arrogance, where no one questioned the rules of the most powerful. The waiter became an easy target, a reminder that in that place there was no room for equality, only for obedience. The woman in green laughed again, saying, "Just stand there. You're a better decoration than a waiter." At that moment, one of the men at the table, drunk and looking for easy applause, raised his hand to push his shoulder, making him stumble. "You can't even stand still. How do you expect to work here?" he shouted, causing another burst of laughter. The waiter took a deep breath, containing the rage that anyone would have let out in his place. There was something in his gaze that didn't match the submission they expected from him, something hidden that no one was seeing. The murmur of the hall grew when a couple of clients began to comment among themselves that the man didn't seem like a simple waiter. His movements were too calculated, his posture too firm, even under humiliation. "It's not normal for someone to endure so much," an elderly woman in the background murmured. However, the group of millionaires ignored her, convinced that it was all a game they could control. And then what no one expected happened. The waiter slowly lifted his gaze, no longer cleaning the tea from his face, and in a deep tone, he began to speak. But he didn't do it in English or his native language. He did it in perfect Mandarin with such impeccable fluency that the entire hall fell silent. The air grew heavy, and the smile on the woman in green's face froze. No one could understand what was happening, but everyone knew at that instant that the man was not what he seemed. The silence in the hall became unbearable. No one dared to move when they heard him speak with a firm and perfect intonation in Mandarin. Every word that came out of his mouth sounded like a direct blow to the pride of those present. "Do you think this place belongs to you by divine right?" his voice asked, sharp as a blade. The woman in the green dress tried to laugh nervously, pretending nothing had changed, but everyone noticed the hand, still holding the empty glass, was trembling. The other millionaires looked at him incredulously, unable to process that the man they had just ridiculed could speak with such authority in their own language. A young heir, emboldened by fear disguised as arrogance, suddenly stood up and shouted, "You're just a waiter. No one here owes you respect. Get out of this place before we kick you out ourselves." Several people supported him, banging on the tables to reinforce their threat, as if they wanted to regain the control they were losing. The waiter, soaked with tea still dripping from his jacket, didn't move an inch. His gaze remained fixed, expressionless, but charged with an unsettling calm. That attitude of confidence only fueled the fury of the arrogant ones. The woman in the green dress took the initiative again, trying to regain her role as leader. "Even if you do speak Mandarin, it doesn't change anything. We make the rules here, not just some foreigner. You'll never be on our level," she said with a smile that no longer managed to hide her nervousness. However, as she spoke, other clients not part of the group began to murmur quietly, commenting that there was something strange about the scene. Some were no longer laughing. Others wondered if they hadn't been witnesses to a humiliation that was too cruel. The weight of guilt began to fall on the passive spectators. The waiter then took a step forward and raised his voice so that the entire hall could hear. "You think this restaurant is untouchable because money protects you, but you are wrong. From today, nothing will be the same here." His firm tone resonated like an echo among the dark wooden walls. The millionaires shifted in their seats, unable to hide their discomfort. One of them shouted, "Shut him up!" But before anyone could act, the waiter took a card from his pocket. The entire hall leaned forward, expectant, holding their breath. The tension grew even more when the light reflected off the engraved metal. He was not a simple employee. He was the new owner of the restaurant. The mouths of those present opened in disbelief, and a murmur spread like wildfire. The woman in the green dress paled. "That can't be true. This must be a joke," she murmured. But her words lacked the confidence she had before. No one was laughing. The easy applause and mockery were transformed into a collective fear, because everyone understood that they had crossed a line from which they could not return. "This place was rotten from the inside," he continued in a grave voice, holding up the card so everyone could see it. "The waiters were exploited, the clients who didn't have money were humiliated, and you thought you were untouchable. I came here not to serve you, but to clean up the rot you represent." His declaration fell like a hammer on those present. The group of millionaires tried to get up and leave, but the hall doors were secured and locked, and no one could enter or leave without his authorization. A security guard, who until then had seemed invisible to everyone, stepped forward and nodded at the new owner. At that instant, the balance of power changed hands. The arrogant ones began to protest, threatening lawsuits and retaliation, but the waiter looked at them with an unassailable calm. "You yourselves have just shown the world what you are: abusers, classists, and cowards," he sentenced as several diners took out their phones to record the scene. What had started as a private mockery was becoming a public exposure. The woman in the green dress, now trembling, tried to apologize. I didn't know who you were. It was just a joke. I didn't mean to." But he interrupted her with an icy stare. "What you did wasn't a joke. It was an act of contempt for someone you considered inferior. Today, you will not only face my response, you will face the response of all those who have been silent for too long." The cell phone cameras captured every word, every gesture. What was once humiliation was transforming into justice in plain sight. That same night, the restaurant announced its new rules on social media: extremely high fines for any act of discrimination, a ban on degrading treatment toward employees or customers, and the implementation of security to protect the dignity of everyone. The videos of the humiliation and the revelation went viral, causing outrage and applause in equal measure. The millionaires, once untouchable, were branded and repudiated by public opinion. The man, standing in the center of the hall, finally raised his voice one last time. "There will never again be room for arrogance disguised as power. Here, everyone will be respected without exception." And with that phrase, the weight of justice fell upon the guilty, while lost dignity found its place again.